Right, well, welcome everybody to Crypto Mondays Zoom, 17th of June, 2026. And this is all about global thought leadership. We choose the leading people around the world to come and share their views with us, their journey, the trends in the industry, their section of the vertical that they're actually most applied in, and just to get their insights on the latest happenings in the industry. So next week we've got Win BTC $1 million, and that's navigating the future of the Bitcoin economy, and it's Avi Mash. That's Wednesday, the 24th of June, and he's co-founder of 21 Rates, host of the Daily Stack Bitcoin Economy podcast with over 1 million downloads. Just a reminder that this featured guest, Crypto Mondays Zoom, is by the community for the community. We recommend it's all about thought leadership, personal journey, passions, insights, trends, stimulating thought and conversation between the audience and the featured guest. It's not about shilling, it's educational, and it's to help our community to learn, earn, and connect, which is our mission. Then just a couple of things. Anybody have a product launch, capital raise, a new job? Please put up your hand, and we would love to hear a 30-second update from you if you are launching something or have something specific and recent to mention that's industry related. Going once? Going twice? Right, let's move on. So if you want to join Crypto Mondays, we'll put this in the chat. There's a link to join. If you'd like to start a chapter, just let us know. It's free to start a chapter. We provide all the support that you need to do that. There's a place to sign up for that. We'll put it in the chat later. We are soft launching Agent Monday at the moment with all the chapter champions around the world. It's about 70 of them. And they are testing it out at the moment. Our Alan Domain, who's on this call, is the orchestrator of many agents building Agent Monday for us and looking super cool. It's going to be an amazing community tool. And then if you're into decentralized AI, please join the Decentralized AI Agent Alliance. It was an extension of Crypto Mondays and has taken a life of its own. And as you know, decentralized AI has become a big thing now. So if you want to follow our journey there, we'll put the link in the chat. And then join Crypto Mondays Zoom for upcoming events. That's also going to be in the chat. And then just before we go to Henry, who's our featured guest today, co-founder and CEO of Streamex, Lou's going to say a few words. Just a little bit about Henry. He's the CEO of Streamex. He's leading the charge in tokenizing real-world commodities. An interesting angle, he comes from the mining side of it, so actually from the traditional resource extraction, and so he's marrying that with blockchain infrastructure. Founded Links Web3 Solutions and Fat Cats Capital NFT, sharing his journey creating institutional gold stablecoin with annualized yield. So it's gold with a yield, and he calls it building a perpetual value machine to provide 24/7 on-chain liquidity for physical assets. So tokenization, the commodities industry, creating productive gold. So before we go to Henry, I'm going to hand over to Lou just to say a few words, give us an update on Crypto Mondays. He's traveling, so he hasn't got his slide deck with him, but I'm sure he's got lots of fun things to say. Over to you, Lou.
Okay, hey, sorry about that. Just got back to my hotel room here in Miami. Looking forward to hearing Henry talk. Just real quickly, as folks have been hearing us talk about now for a while, we're really spending the majority of our time, Robin, Lilia, myself, Alan, on Agent Monday, and you'll all be hearing more and more about it. I'm not going to take up time before Henry to talk about it, but if there's time at the end,
it's being recorded, so we can see it again. I'll see it again.
Hold on a minute. Somebody should be muted. There you go. Any case, if there's time at the end, we'll talk about Monday a little bit. And with that, looking forward to hearing from Henry, and I'll turn it back to Robin.
Thank you, Lou. And over to you, Henry. Looking forward to hearing all about yourself and your journey.
Amazing. Amazing. No, thanks a lot for having me. I'm excited to have this conversation, answer a couple questions from everybody. And so, what I'll do is I'll introduce myself. I'll introduce what we sort of do, and then what I really want to do is keep it more educational in terms of talking about gold, how we create a yield on gold, which is traditionally a unproductive asset, and turn it into a productive asset. And then from there, talk about how tokenization enables us to do a lot of really cool things with it in terms of different liquidity distribution sides and just giving the ability for people to participate in this asset. And so what I'm going to do is I'll give an introduction first, then I'll pull up a couple slides and walk through that with everyone. And as always, if anyone has any questions after, more than happy to answer them. But to start off, my name's Henry Mcphie. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Streamex. We are a publicly listed company. We went public just around a year ago now on the Nasdaq. My background itself is like it said on the slide. One, I'm a mining engineer, and so I've worked in the physical commodities industry and actually taking the assets out of the ground and the gold out of the ground, and also worked very deeply in the digital asset industry and everything from NFTs to early stage tokenization. I founded an NFT project back in 2020, one of the early ones in the Solana ecosystem, and then also started a software development company doing a lot of early stage tokenization stuff. We started Streamex now just over 4 years ago, my co-founder and I out of Vancouver, and really with the goal of that, it was to innovate within an industry that traditionally does not see a lot of innovation. That's the mining and commodity space. It's a very old industry that is sort of set in its ways, but it's also one of the largest TAM markets in the world. And so we looked at that. We saw this new thing that was tokenization coming about, and the excitement about it even 4 years ago, and saw a really cool opportunity to create a platform and create these really unique assets. We recently launched GLDY, which is primarily what we'll be talking about today. That is our gold with yield asset, and so turning gold from a unproductive quote unquote pet rock that sort of just sits there into something that is productive and actually earns you a yield to be able to hold it. And so the yield is generated through something called gold leasing, which I'll get into and sort of explain how that all works. And then from there, if anyone has any questions, like I said, happy to answer them. And so what I'll do is I'll pull up some slides and just quickly want to go through. I won't take too long on this, but just give you sort of a general idea on StreamX and sort of what we're doing here with GLDY and the asset itself. And so the way to think about it is StreamX, we are the issuer, we are the platform that allows us to tokenize these projects or these assets. Gold is the first one that we'll be doing. We'll also be bringing out silver, copper, oil, gas, a number of other commodities. But today we'll be focused on GLDY and the gold asset itself. And so skimming through a little bit to touch what is GLDY. Like I said, GLDY is a tokenized gold-backed security. One GLDY is equal to 1 ounce of gold. Very similar to if you guys know PAX or Tether Gold. Same thing. It tracks the gold price directly, one to one. You can trade it. You can do whatever you want with it in terms of a tokenized asset. The interesting thing, though, is that it also pays a 3.5% annualized yield inherent to the asset. And so essentially giving you the ability to get additional GLDY and additional ounces every single month. And so the yield's paid out monthly in additional gold. And so you actually compound your gold as you hold it. How is this done? And so I'm going to skip through this part just because not I can share this presentation with everyone, but I want to skip here. And so this is a lot of words on this slide, but I want to explain it sort of at a high level. You're probably wondering, how do you generate yield on gold? How do you turn something that is a commodity into that yield generating instrument? The process is through something called gold leasing. And so this is a very institutional process. It's been around for a very long time, but traditionally individual investors have not really had the ability to get exposure to it. And on top of that, if you did get exposure to it, it is a very illiquid instrument because you need to essentially lock your gold up for 6 to 12 months, and then you can't get the liquidity from it. By using tokenization and creating this tokenized asset, we can create a fully liquid instrument. And so gold leasing itself is essentially the process of leasing or renting gold to companies and manufacturers that use it within their processes as working capital. And so a really good example is a jeweler. A jeweler themselves, they're using gold all the time. They're making jewelry, they're making, chains, rings, whatever it is that they have. And from the jeweler standpoint, they don't want to be long the gold price exposure. They simply want to make their margin on the jewelry itself. And so they sort of have two options. One, they can borrow money from a bank and then hedge out the gold price exposure, but that comes with inherent risks and it is expensive for them to do. Or they can lease the gold from someone like us and our partners, Monetary Metals. When they lease the gold, they pay us to be able to use it. The gold stays in our title the whole time. They have the ability to turn it into a chain or a ring or whatever they want, but the amount of gold is still the same. When they sell the gold, they simply replenish it, and the lease stays 110% collateralized throughout the whole process. And what that allows us to do is the GLDY that is representative of the gold itself is always equal to 1 ounce, is always equal to the amount that's on lease, and then the jeweler or the refiner or whoever is leasing the gold, they pay us that essentially lease rate to be able to hold it, and we're able to pass that on to the holders. And so what this really results in is us creating a productive asset from a traditionally unproductive commodity, which is gold, and are able to give that exposure to holders. And so when you think about it right now, gold is traditionally it costs you money to hold. And so whether you're owning an ETF or whether you're owning even the physical gold, it costs you money. An ETF, there's the management fees, physical gold, there's the storage fees. Now with GLDY, you have the ability to actually get paid to hold gold. And I think it's a very exciting thing. Tokenization allows us to turn it into a liquid instrument that you can trade, you can get in and out of whenever you want. We have a fully liquid and live secondary market with Orca right now that we actually just announced. That's on a decentralized exchange and decentralized platform. And so, you have instant liquidity, you have a full secondary market, and I think it's a very interesting thing for anyone who is interested in having gold exposure and having a productive source of gold exposure. And so I won't go too deep into it. I see some questions popping up in the chat here, but really appreciate you guys having me on, and excited to talk more about it and answer anyone's questions about how it all works.
That's awesome, Henry. Thanks so much. That's really cool. So if anybody has a question, please put up your hand. Blue's going to has a couple of questions he'd like to ask Henry in the meantime. But anybody that has any questions, please go ahead. Are there any questions in the chat? Did you say you saw?
Well, I'll quick actually ask first. What do you think kind of the long-term returns you'll be able to generate?
Yeah, so the return itself is gold price. And so whatever the gold price movement is on average, gold actually returns around an 8% return per year over the last sort of 50 years. The 3.5% yield is fixed in terms of the lease rate. And so gold on lease earns that 3.5%. And so we pass that on to the holder.
The 3.5 never changes?
So it's essentially they're 12-month contracts, so 12-month leases. We're actually seeing increased pressure on the lease rates right now, and so we anticipate them to actually potentially increase. Over the last number of years, it has been pretty stable at around the 3.5%, but it is a fluctuating rate that sort of renews every 12 months.
How does it get reset?
It's a market rate, and so on the leases themselves, the lease with the jeweler will have a fixed rate, and then depending on a couple different factors in terms of demand, in terms of size, it can be adjusted up or down.
Okay, thanks for that. And then last question, what's kind of the biggest thing that's slowing you down from growing faster? It's kind of the biggest problem, that if you can snap your fingers.
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. I think the biggest thing for us is one, making it easy for people to participate in the asset. And so right now, because it is a tokenized security, there is KYC requirements. And so individuals do need to be KYC to be able to participate. And there's also a $25,000 minimum on the purchase of the asset itself. And so that's obviously a friction point for people to be able to participate in it. However, we're also going to be coming out with a non-security version of GLDY that can be fully permissionless and tradable within DeFi, and the yield will not be inherent to the asset, but can be distributed through different vaulting platforms and as rewards on chain. And so I think that's something that it's going to be called GLDC. It's backed by GLDY and will give the ability for a much wider distribution and a lot more people to be able to participate in the asset. And so there's sort of two ways to look at it. If you're, non-accredited investor who wants the gold price exposure and then more DeFi mechanics, you can buy GLDC. If you want the security asset and the stable gold price exposure as well as yield, you can buy GLDY.
Perfect. Thanks.
Thanks, Luke.
Right, Vitaly.
Hello, Henry. Thank you for this presentation. My question is, on which chains the token is present?
So the tokens are currently on Base and Solana.
Okay, and which is the token format on the Base?
Base, it's ERC20, and then Solana's SPL. It's a SPL extension. I can check exactly.
Let's talk about EVM compatible, the Base, for example. If it's
Yep.
ERC20, I assume that it is transferable between the wallets. So basically, I can send it as a gift to my brother, right?
Correct. If both of you are whitelisted, and so there is a whitelisting requirement as a security, but if both of you are within both of your KYC 100%.
Okay, good. And does the secondary market exist for those ERC20 tokens?
Yeah, so currently the secondary market is on Solana. We anticipate a secondary market on Base going live in the very, very near term here with a pretty exciting partner.
How the secondary market is going to be implemented? Will it be a pool, liquidity pool? Okay, not peer-to-peer?
Yeah, so actually this is something really cool that we've done. One is with the Orca team. And so the Orca exchange, and this is one that I can talk about really freely because it's already live, is actually it's a permissioned AMM. And so both a prop and CLMM. And so essentially it is similar to how you would go and swap on any sort of DEX and DEX AMM there, but it has permissions within it. And so it's gated to whitelisted and KYC'd investors. And so the individuals within the pool, we know who they are, and that's for the security requirements. But what it allows you to do is we've seeded pretty significant liquidity within there with a number of market makers. And so it allows you to actually go in and swap and trade the asset instantly like you would on any decentralized exchange.
Okay, what would you say if there is a perspective to have this tradable on the OTC market or the decentralized OTC like Swarm Gold?
Yeah, I mean, we're more than happy to look at as many distribution channels as possible. I think, the biggest thing for us is we want to have as wide of a distribution as possible. And if they can, fall within the regulations, we're more than happy to look at it.
Okay, how can we convert this in a separate conversation with you? Maybe
Happy to.
for the I will just put my Telegram handle here, right?
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vitaly. Anybody else got a question?
I had a question.
Rich.
So would this be something that, for instance, I've been working with a local politician discussing about alternative ways to do strategic reserves and things like that. Is that something that you guys would be open to doing, or is that something in you guys' wheelhouse? Because if so, definitely would love to see about exploring those opportunities. And if so, kind of explain kind of how that would the vision of what you would see in the sense of kind of local funding and things like that.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And so is the politician you're working with in the US or somewhere else?
U.S. Based here
Okay.
in Kansas City, Kansas.
Amazing, amazing. Yeah, so we're a U.S. company. We're based in Florida actually, and so we're very much aligned with that, and in terms of working with government to be able to do that. We've actually had a number of conversations already. The company that we work with on the gold leasing side is also Scottsdale, Arizona, U.S. company too, and so we're very much aligned on that. Would 100% be a conversation to discuss, and I think it's something that's interesting. Like the gold, for example, before it's on lease, is custodied within New York, and so we're part of that sort of ecosystem already. And I think it's something when we're talking with both companies and governments and different firms that are looking for different types of treasury management and they want to have gold exposure. It's normally a good thing to have gold exposure, obviously, in your portfolio, especially right now, I think. And if you can turn that into a productive source of income, it gets very very interesting for you as the investor, because now no longer is it, like I said earlier, gold has around an 8% average return year over year over the last 50 years. When you compare that to the S&P, it's a little bit lower, but when you add a 3.5% yield on top of that, all of a sudden you're getting sort of a 11.5%, return year over the last 50 years. And that's similar to the S&P, but completely uncorrelated to equities. And so it's a very powerful instrument, I think, for any sort of treasury management or, reserve asset. 100% of conversation we would be interested in having.
Yeah, I reached out on LinkedIn, so definitely, again, would love to continue the conversation.
Amazing. Thanks, Rick.
And I see there's a graph there showing how it's got a premium. It's running at a premium to physical gold. Is that consistent? Does it run at that consistently?
So with the yield itself, you'll always essentially be compounding gold.
Yeah.
And so your 1 ounce, say it's a 3.5% yield for the year, and say you own, for easy math, you own 100 ounces. By the end of the year, you'll have 103.5 ounces. And so you'll track the gold price while also getting additional gold for holding the asset.
Yes, got it. Got it. And Henry, what lessons did you learn? Because I mean, you came out of the physical industry into the blockchain industry. How difficult was that transition for you to understand the dynamics of tokenization?
Yes, yeah, it's a really good question, and it's funny. Like I always sort of been involved in the blockchain space, and I'd been doing like physical mining and then also working in blockchain and DeFi sort of at the same time. Like as I was going through my degree, I was also working in doing, whether it's NFTs or having my software development company. And so they were sort of in tandem. And it was really interesting when we had the idea to start Streamex, because I had that experience and I understood how hard it was to actually get this metal out of the ground, and had worked at mines across northern BC and underground and actually mining physical gold, but then also working in tokenization and working in DeFi and understanding how that sort of worked. And so I think I was in a really lucky position to be able to start this because of my experience in both of those industries. And so it wasn't too steep of a learning curve. I think the biggest thing is when we did start, there was not a lot of tokenization infrastructure, even just 4 years ago. And so we were, I think, doing a lot of learning and a lot of pioneering as we were going through and actually creating this asset and the platform and the ecosystem that we did create.
Got it. Brilliant. I see some questions in the chat. Have we addressed these? What's the process to buy? You've done that already, did you, Henry?
Yeah, so I haven't gone through that yet. I can just literally just pull this up right here. Easiest way to buy it, if you're interested, go to streamex.com or app.streamex.com. You can create an account super easily. Just go through, create an account, and you can make your purchase. It's pretty simple. If you have any questions at all, we've got a helpline, help email. We can get anyone of our sales team or operations team to get on the phone with you and walk you through the process as well.
Great. And Charles, I see, has the token been collateralized on any platforms yet? If so, what have you seen for LTV? Have we addressed that one?
Yeah, so we haven't done that yet. It is something that is in the works, and there's a couple things that we're working through on that side of things. I think it's going to be something very powerful when it does happen. But as of right now, there's a couple more regulatory hurdles that we're working through.
I imagine it must have helped you quite a bit to be listed.
I think it has. I think in a couple different
Credibility.
ways. Yeah, in a couple different ways. I think one is the people and the partners that we've been able to get because we are a public company. We have, very obviously transparent financials, and we work with large institutions in that sense as we're raising money. A partner that we actually recently announced was Equity Trust, and so Equity Trust is a large IRA custodian in the U.S., and so they have around $75 billion in assets under management and 350,000 people within their platform, and we are actually the first tokenized asset that they are offering to their IRA clients, and so you will actually be able to hold GLDY within a tax-free advantaged account in the U.S. as a U.S. person through Equity Trust. That is something that, because we're a public company, because we're a regulated entity, as same as Equity Trust is, that we were able to do that with them, and so we're very excited to be the first tokenized asset that they actually offer to their clients there, and I think as we move forward, the other partnerships that you see sort of coming online will be really exciting too.
And Henry, in terms of real world assets and the trend it's currently, and the institutional involvement,
Mhm.
what do you think, where do you think it's going? Which assets do you think are going to be most likely be tokenized? How do you think it's all going to play out?
Yeah, it's a really good question. It's honestly right now is a really interesting time. I think what we're seeing with tokenized equities is really powerful. I think with the SpaceX IPO that just happened was a really good example with that. Backpack on Solana had a really good system set up in place, and they actually just launched their tokenized equity trading side of things, which is really cool. I think commodities are a very large TAM market to be able to tackle, and it's a very opaque market as well. And tokenization offers a lot of benefits, I think, for the trading of commodities, and that's obviously what we're focused in and what we want to advance. And so overall, I think when we sort of think of tokenization and the market in general, I think it's the tokenizing something just for the sake of tokenizing it does not add value necessarily. But if you can tokenize an asset that already does inherently trade, an asset that there is already a lot of interest in the traditional markets, and either one, give access to ways to hold it or ways to trade it that people haven't had access to before, or create a more value-added version of it through tokenization, that is what's going to end up being successful. And so I think really tokenized equities, tokenized commodities, in my opinion, are the two most bullish sort of sides of tokenization. And then I think when you get into things like the more private credit side, real estate, stuff like that, there's definitely a spot for it. But I think equities and commodities are going to be the two leaders.
Yeah, because asset-backed tokens are a lot easier to understand than just your, yeah. What do you see on the other side of the fence where not with the non-asset-backed tokens? Have you given some thought to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something that will always have a place within crypto. I've traded meme coins for years. Everything from Shiba back in the day to the Solana meme coin height that we had like a year and a half ago. And so that's something where I don't think that's ever going to go away. I think it's going to come in cycles, obviously, and I don't think there's any cycle that lasts forever. But I think there's lulls and there's peaks of that, and then I think also just generally with a lot of the sort of like the crypto assets out there, there needs to be a value to them. And I think everyone's sort of aligned that I don't think we need any more L1s, for example. I think we need to build out infrastructure on the existing L1s and L2s. And I think, by being able to do that while also, keeping the culture that is crypto with memes, with NFTs, with everything that there is there, I think there'll always be a place for that. And I think it's something that is, inherently valuable to the ecosystem.
Got it. Cindy?
Hi, Henry. It's super interesting. I'm working with a client outside the US. So one of my question is, do you serve a client outside the US, whether this is a US platform versus global? And then my second question is, can you give a profile breakdown of your current institution clients? 25K is probably not suitable for general retail, but whether you're going there or not. And then last but not least, would definitely love to connect offline about this particular project. My client outside the US has a project to tokenize gold mines in particular. So it still needs to go through mining process. We're at the beginning of the process. They have agreement with large land mass, the use cases for tokenization, including carbon credit and other natural resources, and gold mine is just one of them. So we'd love to tap into your expertise on that.
Awesome. No, thanks a lot for the question, Cindy. And so to answer your first question, yes, it's available for investors outside the US. It's actually investors all around the world, barring obviously OFAC and different sanctions risk countries. And so 100%, if your client is outside the US, there's no problem there. Happy to speak with them. On the second question, yeah, happy to connect and happy to discuss other opportunities with tokenization and any sorts of commodities. And so, we're always looking to work with good partners on doing that. In terms of the sort of the client base and what we've seen so far, there should have been I would say three main clients that we're speaking to right now. One would be wealth managers and RIAs, and so
Mhm.
brokers and people who have clients that are looking for gold exposure and are looking for a better, more productive form of gold exposure. And so we're working with a number of RIAs and wealth managers on that front at the moment. The second would be ETFs and asset managers. And so essentially giving them the ability to hold GLDY and create a really unique and actually potentially yield bearing or feeless ETF that holds gold. When you compare that to GLD, which is the largest gold ETF out there right now, it charges you 30 or 40 basis points to be able to hold it. Now, if you hold GLDY, you can potentially actually get paid to hold it in an ETF while still tracking gold price directly as well. And so it's a very interesting use case there. And we're working with a number of ETF partners on that. The third would be accredited and more sort of like high net worth investors. Like you said, it's a $25,000 minimum, so it's not necessarily for everyone on the retail sense, just from that price point. But a lot of high net worth accredited investors have shown a lot of interest in the asset and being able to diversify their gold portfolio exposure into this productive asset. And so those are sort of the main parties that we're talking to. And then,
Mhm.
like I said earlier, we're also going to be launching the more permissionless, non-security version of GLDY that can still
Mhm.
give people gold exposure, still provide people with a yield, but in a much more permissionless and wider distribution than this security asset that we came out with first. And so that's something that's going to be coming out, I would say, in the next couple months.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. A follow-up question. This is like obviously gold already exists. Do you have experience working with gold mines that have not been mined yet and being tokenized for future potential?
Yeah, yeah. So we haven't tokenized anything in terms of like a junior mining company that hasn't isn't producing or anything yet.
Yep.
But both myself and our team, we have a lot of experience in that space. We're backed by a couple of really prominent mining investors with Sean Rusin, founder of the Assiso Group, Frank
Mhm.
Justra, founder of a number of large mining companies, and so we have a lot of experience in that space. We haven't looked or we haven't gone down the path of tokenizing any of those deposits yet.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to definitely reach out, and I think we have a lot to talk about. Thanks.
Amazing. Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you, Cindy. There's a question from Khaled. Henry, Sharp Insights. Since you've scaled a regular architecture, what was the heaviest engineering bottleneck you hit with GLDY? and how did you differentiate your infrastructure to clear it?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think from the engineering side, the biggest piece was the smart contract and the permissions within the smart contract itself for the asset. And so, for example, because it's only whitelisted wallets, we keep a essentially internal data or a database within the smart contract of the whitelisted wallets themselves, so that it only allows for the asset to be transferred between those whitelisted wallets. And so we're using the different extensions on both the ERC20 and the SPL token manager to be able to do that. And that's something that it was pretty cool for us to be able to create it. But from an engineering standpoint, I think that was in terms of technical lift, that was the biggest thing, and making sure that it was all still fully compliant as we were going through it. And then, on top of that, the platform itself, we're constantly making updates and making it easy for people to participate in the asset, everything from just front end and UI design and UX for investors, all the way towards back end to make it efficient. As if somebody puts money on the platform, the flow of those funds, all the way from initial purchase to purchasing the gold to getting credited your GLDY. There's quite a lot that goes on when you do click that button. And so it was a big process to be able to get it to that point. But I'm pretty happy with where it is right now, and I think you'll see a lot of benefits, or actually a lot of advancements in the platform over the next couple weeks.
Thanks, Henry. And then you mentioned being, well, I noticed you were in NFTs and mining before you got into the gold. It looks like that anyway. Did that bring anything to the table? I mean, what does NFTs got to do with, or did you bring it in some way, that
Yeah.
learning of yours?
No, it's a really good question, actually, and I've been asked it a couple times, and people asking me like, hey, you started an NFT project and now you're the CEO of a public company on the Nasdaq, like, it seems pretty different.
Yeah.
And the answer that I give
Leave that
them,
off your LinkedIn profile, the NFT part.
no, not even. Like, honestly, I'm pretty I'm proud of what we did with the NFT
True.
project, and it's something that I actually talk about a lot. One, because when we launched, it was a crazy time, and there was a lot of really cool stuff happening. We ended up selling out the collection. We were the third largest project in the world when we launched. Like, it was really
Whoa.
exciting, and unlike other NFT projects that a lot of them sort of went to zero and really left the community behind and didn't really do I think the best things. It was interesting on our side because my co-founder and I, when we did wind down the project, we actually refunded everyone from our own pockets. And so every person that minted the NFTs, we bought back their NFTs and refunded them when that happened. And so it wasn't something that we had to do, but it was something that we wanted to do. And from our conscience and karma going forward, I think it was important that we did that. And we both knew that we were going to be doing things in the future. And if we paid back this money right now, it wouldn't really make a huge difference, because we both wanted to do things as we continued on in our careers. And then when people ask, it's like, hey, what's the difference between running a public company and running a NFT project? Obviously, they're two very different things, but when you think about it, it's very similar. You're dealing with people, you're selling a product, you're creating something that's differentiated in the market to be able to, essentially make money for your investors, whether it's NFT holders or whether it's public company investors and people who own equity in Streamex. And so it's there's a couple very interesting parallels, I think, between them both, even though they are very, very different. And one has a lot more compliance, and it's a much larger scale than the other, but it's a pretty interesting sort of parallel on both sides.
I mean, NFTs still have an incredible use case. That was just marketing for the possibility, the concept, effectively, I think.
Yeah, 100%.
And then you mentioned that gold's just the first commodity you're going to do, and that you might be doing silver, copper, oil, and gas. How do you handle or tokenize a depletable energy resource? I don't understand how that would work.
Yeah. So it's really interesting, and so we're definitely going to be doing silver in the next couple months here. It's on our roadmap. It's pretty much ready to go. Copper itself, same thing. Hard commodity, easy for us to bring to market. We wanted to tackle sort of large markets in that sense. Oil and gas is a very unique one. It's something that we're going to be publishing a lot more information on it in the coming sort of weeks and months in terms of what it'll actually look like. But what I can say right now is that it is going to look very similar to in terms of how like futures contracts are designed. So you will have the ability to actually take physical delivery, but obviously 99.9% of the time you do not, but you get exposure to the asset, direct exposure to the asset through different storage transit sources. And so whether that's on a tanker going across the ocean, whether that's in a pipeline, whether that's, et cetera, a couple different options there. It'll be a really interesting sort of structure that we set up for us to be able to create a tokenized asset that does give one-to-one exposure to this physical commodity, which is oil or gas, while also giving the ability for physical possession of it if you wish. However, 99.9% of the time, people just want that long exposure to the commodity itself.
Got it. Got it. And I didn't understand how the jeweler model works. So do you lend the gold, you rent the gold, and then they pay you back when they've made
Yeah,
the jewelry, or
yeah. So a really, really simple way to think about it is, say you have an apartment or an office, and there's a company leasing the office. The company who's leasing the office has the right to use the office. They can put their people in there. They can do all their work in there. But you, as the owner of the office, you still own it. And so, it's yours. It's in your possession. It is your asset, and they simply pay you to use it. Very similar with gold leasing. And so the gold itself is still in our title. It's our gold. They simply have the right to use it. And so when they make the jewelry and sell the jewelry, say they lease 100 ounces, that'll be collateralized 110%. So they need to bring 10 of their own. So there'll be 110 ounces there. Then they make a chain that is 1 ounce of gold and they sell that chain. They will simply rebuy it back. So they will always rebuy the gold back. So there'll always be 110 ounces there. And we retain title to that gold the whole time. And then every single month they pay us the lease fee to be able to actually use it and make their jewelry and do all that sort of stuff. And so it creates a very interesting dynamic there where we can actually make the gold active and give people the ability to use it while we get paid to make it active itself while keeping possession.
very clever, very clever. And Henry, how have you been convincing traditional investors to move from, for example, PAX-G and Tether Gold into GLDY? And what's the feedback been from institutions in terms of weighing up those options for them?
Yeah, I mean, I think the simplest pitch is you can own gold in all of these other ways, but either you don't get a yield or it costs you money to hold. Now with GLDY, you can get the same gold exposure while also getting paid to hold it and getting a yield. And so there's been a lot of education on the tokenization piece and what tokenization means and how that all works, how you can custody it, et cetera, et cetera. But I think the headline is this is a better asset than what's currently out there. And our biggest piece, our biggest thing is making it easy for people to understand and easy for people to interact with and making it feel like something that they've interacted with before, both in TradFi and in DeFi and in Web3.
Got it. And I think you mentioned that you could swap your GLDY for gold. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, you can redeem for the physical.
So how does that work? How do you send it in the post, or
Yeah.
or does it get stored somewhere, or
Yeah.
how does that
So the
process?
process is very similar actually to how PAX has their redemption process set up, where you need something called a local London account, which is the electronic transfer system for gold worldwide, and you can have that through Brinks or any other sort of custodian that custodies gold. And so there's a minimum on the redemption. It's 1 kilo bar, which is around 100,000, if not a little bit less. Dollars right now. So there's a minimum in the redemption. We don't want people redeeming for 1 ounce coins. It's not very economic. But people do have the ability to redeem it for the physical as long as they have that local London account and can facilitate the electronic transfer of the physical gold itself. We're not going to be shipping any gold in the mail to people. It's not very safe.
Cool. And then in terms of why did you choose Base and Solana? And are there specific like technical features of these chains that are more, make them more preferable over others for a yield-bearing security like GLDY?
Yeah. Yeah, I think, the biggest things that we look at on Base was we wanted to be involved in the Ethereum ecosystem, but because we're paying dividends and doing a lot of on-chain activity, we didn't want the fees of Ethereum. And so Base from an L2 standpoint sort of made the most sense with us. We also work really closely with the Coinbase team on a number of things. And so we're excited to be able to work with them on that and have the asset initially listed on Base. Also on Solana, very, very similar, same thing, fast speeds, cheap, cheap transaction fees, and relationship with the foundation and the ecosystem there was really important for us to be able to help facilitate our growth and work with them on growing both the company and the asset itself.
Brilliant. And then do you think that you mentioned a perpetual value machine, do you think that this mechanism, how do you think it's going to change the way that traditional mining industry finances its operations?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. And so the perpetual value machine is referring to mining companies right now who essentially what they do is they take the gold out of the ground and then sell it. It's a one time transaction. They never
Right.
actually realize any value after they sell the asset. And so gold's a good example. You take 1 ounce of the ground, you sell that ounce, and you never see any value from it again. They don't hold it on their balance sheet. They don't really do anything with it other than sell it. And so by potentially working in a more tokenized sense and giving the ability for these mining companies actually to tokenize their production and sell it in that form, maybe even sell it as an asset like GLDY, for example, where they still get the dollar value of the asset. They still have the ability to, realize their gain on the asset itself, but they can place it in a tokenized form where they can either generate a yield from it through GLDY, for example, or also potentially generate additional fees from owning the tokenized asset itself, whether that's through different LP agreements, whether that's through the trading volumes, whether that's through, a number of different on-chain strategies that can be performed. And so I think it's something that it is going to take a little bit of time and a little bit of education to actually talk to these companies about it. But I think in terms of potential and operations and potential operations for the industry, it is a very real feasible opportunity, and it is something that we've been speaking with a number of mining
Fascinating.
companies about.
Well, that's all I've got. Is that David joining us? Yeah, those are all my questions. Anybody else got any questions before I hand it back to Lou, if you're available, Lou, just to finish off your discussion on Agent Monday and anything else that you would like to say before we close off? Everybody good? Well, feel free to put up your hand if you think of something while we're chatting. Lou, are you able to talk now? Going once? Okay, so yeah, thanks very much, Henry. That was absolutely fantastic. And yeah, it was a good turnout today and fascinating discussion and very thought-provoking. And yeah, we wish you all the best. It just sounds like you've done everything correctly, done it properly, which is super cool, And I guess that's the advantage of coming from the physical resource side of it, is that it really had to be done properly. And it's not just an experimental project that we're hoping is going to attract a whole lot of venture capital and then
Yeah.
not a 2 out of 10 chance of succeeding. So congratulations on bringing the virtual and the physical worlds together in such an awesome way. Oh, there's Lou. Sorry, Lou's trying to get himself back on here.
Yeah.
Lou,
So
yeah, fire away. You have the floor.
Let's see. So real quick, just while we have folks here, we started, and a few of the folks here were on this, but we started a weekly, and just want to share my screen here real quick, a weekly call with Crypto Monday organizers around Agent Monday and the roadmap and what we're building. And, real quick, in terms of who we're building it for, we really have three audiences. Well, hold on a second. There we go. For organizers to help them grow, engage, and monetize. For attendees, the Crypto Monday community members, help them learn and connect better. And then for sponsors, give them a higher ROI. And we're looking at that really what can we give to our community members so that they'll come and participate in the community, come leverage Agent Monday every day. And so, we're going to start rolling out some things, community Crypto Mondays member of the day, and different reasons for people to come back and different utility. And I think I'm super excited about, we're already, the other thing I'll share real quick, just in terms of the growth. We're now 52 active cities. Now Monday is now managing everything, or increasingly everything for Crypto Monday Global. How Alan, Robin, myself, and Lilia organize ourselves, and so now all the information is in Monday. We have 52 active chapters. There are 21 planned chapters, so this is the most in the history of Crypto Mondays in terms of the number of cities that are actively engaged, talking to Robin on a regular basis about launching. 17 inactive chapters, so maybe we can boost some of those up. I visited a number of them in Tel Aviv, Porto, Bangkok. If you go in, here's a page on Monday, and you can see the different chapters and the different designations. They're active, planned, inactive. 21 new chapters growing, 11 outside the US, 10 in the US. And we're also starting the 4 new sub brands: Crypto Monday Institutional, which David Fung is leading, and Luis Moncasi out of Switzerland. CM Decentralized AI, Bitcoin Mondays, and Crypto Mondays Zoom. We're doing it. This is obviously the Europe chapter. I think do they have a starting date on when Crypto Mondays Zoom Europe is going to happen? It'll be at a more convenient time for folks in Europe, because obviously this is now 7, 8, 9 o'clock across Europe. Robin, is there a date for Zoom?
No, I'm not aware of a date yet, Lou. He's going to coordinate with the different countries, and so I'm not sure when the first date's going to be. They haven't confirmed yet.
So in any case, that's a quick update. Thanks, Robin, for giving me the floor.
Great, Lou. Thank you very much.
I just want to make a quick comment here.
David. Hey, David. Mr.
Hey, guys.
Crypto Monday Institutional.
Yeah, really appreciate it. Want to also thank my boss, Henry Mcphie, for joining on the call today.
Yes.
Exciting project, exciting stuff for those that are local here in the States. Definitely, we posted our email on the chat room. So henry@streamex.com, or myself here locally, david@streamex.com. You guys know how to reach out to me internally in Crypto Mondays. So with that, just want to thank everybody, and especially Henry for hopping on the call. I know it's hard to get his time because he's so busy.
Yeah, and Henry, I look forward to following up as well. Creating yield on Bitcoin. I'm super excited about that, as well as gold. I'm a believer in gold. The gold is not going away. It's been around 5,000 years, something like that.
Yeah. No, thanks, Lou.
What about the last question,
Robin?
Henry, on how do you view your physical tokenized gold with Bitcoin, digital gold? Do people not get lost in that terminology in terms of, and how do they hang together, the two of those?
Well,
I can say I own both, and so I'm a big believer in Bitcoin, big believer in gold, and so I think having both in your portfolio is always a really good thing to do.
Thank you, Henry. On that note, thanks everybody. Amazing. See you next week. Well done,
Thanks,
Henry.
everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, David.
Thanks.
And thank you to Lilia and Alan.
Cheers,
for all
guys.
the background work that they do for us. Thanks so much, and have a
Thanks.
fantastic rest of the day.
Thank you, everyone.